All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Terence Crawford states that the fight between him and Spence Jr. is going to happen. And Terence Crawford also debunked a lot of stuff with the debacle situation about 60-40 and all the other stuff between the dispute between Spence's team and his team. I'm going to break it down for y'all. Let's talk about it in this video. King Jr. got another video for y'all. Please sure that you make sure you like and subscribe to the channel to get all your latest boxing news. I'm going to try my best to keep the boxing news rolling. With that being said, Terence Crawford states that he wants Errol Spence as much as Errol Spence wants Terence Crawford. And Terence Crawford did an interview with a couple people recently today. And Terence Crawford says a lot of things that he debunked. Terence Crawford says that the media and the managers and promoters has been manipulating the lies that was spread about Terence Crawford not wanting to, that Spence didn't want to fight Terence Crawford, this side of the street didn't want that side of the street, and all this other stuff that we've been arguing about with this fight for damn near 2 years now. And Terence Crawford stated that, I'm going to get to the 60-40 first. Terence Crawford stated that, I wouldn't take 60-40, but we recently heard Terence Crawford say, would you take 50-50 or no fight on a radio podcast show? Terence Crawford says, I don't know. But Terence Crawford turns around and debunks that and says it's not all true. The managers and promoters didn't want this fight to happen because they want to get bread off multi-fight deals and stuff like that. So Terence Crawford is willing to negotiate with the PBC in the future to make this fight happen between Errol Spence Jr. and himself. So Terence Crawford states that with the PBC, he's willing to do whatever it takes to make this deal done, right? And so the PBC's looking like, look, we'll take you, Terence Crawford, but you're going to have to sign a multi-fight deal. And Terence Crawford hints out and says, well, it could be Keith Thurman. I'm looking for that Keith Thurman smoke. And Keith Thurman recently came out today and said, look, where's the contract? Send the contract. I'm ready, Crawford. Which I think Keith Thurman is going to get knocked out or stopped. But Keith Thurman is looking for that smoke. So Terence Crawford could be potentially signing a 2-fight deal since Errol Spence Jr. has a fight coming up with Danish Lucas, and Terence Crawford fights Keith Thurman, and then we get an undisputed showdown between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. And we recently heard boxing reporters and writers saying that there's no money in this fight, but y'all was willing to give Canelo Alvarez $100 million, a 2-fight deal to fight Charlo and Benavidez. Canelo said, screw y'all, I'm turning this down. I want to make history go to 175. And I told you guys from the beginning that Canelo Alvarez was going to 175 to make history, to do the boxing, the business, and do what's best for him and his entire career and his legacy. With that being said, Terence Crawford says he wants Errol Spence as much as I do. And they always talk behind the scenes on how we could get this fight done. And I remember a long time ago when Errol Spence Jr. says that I don't even know how this works, how we could get a fight done. So this is where the boxing politics come into play. They didn't never want this fight from the beginning. They didn't want Terence Crawford to leave with that belt. No, they wanted more than what Terence Crawford wanted, you know. And Bob Arum as a promoter has failed. He's failed to give Terence Crawford that fight. Why do you think Terence Crawford's suing for $10 million? For damages, racial bias, and Bob Arum didn't even promote Terence Crawford the right way. So we could be potentially getting the showdown next. And Terence Crawford stated that I'm coming for Errol Spence Jr. next. I'm coming for it. It's going to happen. And he knows it's going to happen. And so this is big news from Terence Crawford. We know Terence Crawford was saying some things that was kind of crazy about how the 60-40 deal and all this other stuff, and he wouldn't take 50-50 or no fight. Terence Crawford said it's not true. That's what they wanted to tell him. And I've been telling you guys all along. when managers and promoters, just like we recently seeing right now with George Kambosos Jr., when he started to change his tune, saying he was going to fight Devin Haney, don't worry about you, I'm not going to duck you like Tio. But his manager Lou DiBello starts saying all this crazy junk about, oh, Devin Haney's an email champ, he doesn't deserve to fight George Kambosos Jr. for undisputed, and George Kambosos Jr. was never undisputed. So what belt is he holding? The WBC franchise belt, and the WBC makes up lies. It says that you can't win it or lose it, but it seems to me that Tio has lost the belt, and now George Kambosos Jr. has that belt. So be ready for the biggest showdown we ever going to see in boxing today in history is between Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford says, I want Errol Spence Jr. as much as he want me, and this fight is definitely going to happen. Even if he's got to take a multi-fight deal, even if he's got to go through Keith Thurman and then Errol Spence Jr. Because remember, PBC's like, oh, wait, you're not just going to do a one-fight deal just like Canelo Alvarez and get out of here and not get a return on our investment. No, we got to get some money out to Terence Crawford if you want Errol Spence Jr. and walk off to the sunset. So Terence Crawford could be potentially fighting. Now, I don't know how true this deal is. I'm just emphasizing on what could potentially happen, right? And what I believe what the PBC is doing is is willing to accept Terence Crawford, but you're just not gonna take them belts and walk off, because we know Terence Crawford is a network promotional free agent. So maybe Terence Crawford might deal with his own promotional company, Terence Bud Crawford Promotions, or he might try to get a deal with someone else. He can't go to the Zone, he can't go to Top Rank, because none of them promotional companies want him. So it looks like he could be potentially going to the PBC. But with that being said, guys, Terence Crawford says it's going to happen between Errol Spence Jr. and himself. I'm excited, and I can't wait to see them two get in the ring. I still have Errol Spence Jr. beating Terence Crawford, but it's going to be one hell of a fight. With that being said, it is what it is. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. This is your boy King Jr. I'm out of here. Peace.